Good morning, friends. Today is our class on political science, and what you will learn from this class: the introduction of state and the basics of a state. So, let's start. Now, three questions that will be answered in this class, and you will also understand the meaning of these are the what defines a state, what are the basic components of a state, and why is India a state and Haryana is a unit of state. So you may have heard that Haryana is a state and Punjab is a state, but they are not technically state in the language of political science. They're only unit of state. And why that so, we will learn today. So for an example, if we talk about state, then the example of state is not Haryana or Punjab. The example of state are India, Australia, New Zealand, or America. These are the states. And why? Now the question arises why they are the states. There has to be some reasons, and that brings us to the next portion of our class, and that is the basic components. What are the basic components that somehow creates an entity called state? And these four elements are these. First of all, area. Second one is population. Third one is government. And the fourth one and the last one is sovereignty. Now, it would be really good if you start writing these four in your book or your copy, or even in the comment section if you can. Write these four at least 4 times or 5 times. You will become familiar to these. It's a time-tested formula. If you write them, you learn them. No, I will make sure, I will explain them, I will make sure that you learn them and you will remember them. That's my guarantee. But you have to write these four at least 4 times. Okay, just be focused in the class and you will learn. It's not something like a different things you will be completely like, what is this? No, it will not be like this. It is very easy and it's a humanity subject. So this is something that you have to feel. So write these 4 times and you will understand, you will become familiar to these. Now there are two types of learners, one that is writing them and that is good for him, and the other that is not writing. Well, that is not a very good or beneficial act. So write them 4 times, you will become familiar, and now we will start explaining them one by one, and you will understand the basic concept of state by the explanation of the basic components of the state. Now definition is something that you will understand once you will have understand these four elements. So first element, the area. Now look around you, look at India, you know that it has an area. America has an area, Australia has an area, specific area that is defined, specific territory, a fixed territory. In case of Israel, before 1948, the people of Israel were not settled in a fixed territory. They were scattered all around the world. So if the population is scattered all around the world, it is not technically called it's not technically called a state. So in order for a state to exist, there is a need of a fixed territory. And why? Because if there is no fixed territory, if the people are scattered everywhere, then is it going to be impossible? Ask yourself this question. If people are scattered throughout the world, all over the world, there are some people here, some people there, how is the government going to work? Is it possible for the government to work? Is it possible for the rule of law to work? Is it possible? No, it is not. So the first thing that we need, and this is something that you see every day, is area. A state must have an area, and it should be a fixed, well-defined area. Okay, that is something that you already know, right? Now the next thing that we see, first we will learn about the population. So you have an area, but you also need population. Imagine if there is a barren land or there are vastness of oceans where is no human being living. How are you going to establish state in an area there is no human? I mean, in order to make the rule, and then in order to make the rule for someone, you also need someone. If there is no one living in that land, it's a barren land, it's not a state. Who is going to do the agriculture? Who is going to manufacture? Who is going to do the trade? Who is even going to form the government? And for whom the rules are going to be formed? So you need a population. Now Aristotle, this person was a political thinker, Greek political thinker, ancient one. And when he was saying this, it was around 2500 before today. years, 2500 years from today when this person was living. So you have to keep in mind that whatever he says, he will be saying according to his time. So but Aristotle said of something very important. He said that population should be big enough. Okay, it should be big enough, it should not be too small, and it should also be small enough. So he's saying that it should be somewhere in the middle. And why? It should be big enough to be self-sufficing. It should be enough so it can sustain itself, it can manufacture, it can agriculture, it can do other activities, it can help each other. It should be big enough to be ruled, it can form government, it can form various departments, should be big enough. The second thing that he said is that it should be small enough as well to be well governed. If the government has to function in a proper manner, the population should not be too vast. If it's too much of a population, there are too many people living, there is going to be a lot of crime, there is going to be many other problems, there will be poverty. Of course, population is one of the factor behind poverty, and when poverty arises, crime goes up, and it becomes quite impossible and quite difficult for the government to well perform its duties and its functions. So this person said that the population should be big enough to be self-sufficing, and it also should be small enough to be well governed. He also suggested a number. You do not have to remember this number because it's an outdated theory now, that he said that 5040 people. But in today you see that India has 1.35 billion people living, while San Marino is a small country in Europe near Italy. It has only 17,000 at its total population. So it could be any number, it could be a big number, it could be a small number, but it has to be somewhere that there has to be people. You cannot establish states if there is no one living in your state. Okay, now that takes us to our third and important. All four of them are important in their own sphere, and the state will cease to exist if even one of them is missing. So now, what is a government? First of all, in a simple common word, we can understand that government is a common authority. It is not bind to one person, it is not of one person only or one community only, it is for everyone. So it's a common authority. And why do we need a common authority? Because when you have area, you have population, and people are living there, you need some sort of laws. If there are no rules, people are going to do whatever they please. And in that kind of situation, things will become anarchic. There will be no rule, there will be no equality, there will be no justice. So in order to prevail justice, in order to have some kind of security, you need somebody, some organization that is there with common authority to make the laws. So the first function for that we need the government is to make the laws. Somebody has to make the laws, and then to define the laws. Laws are like rules. You also have to define the rule. If you do not understand the rule, how are you going to follow the rule? So the government has also to do this, to define the laws. The third thing, it will become a paper exercise if you do not implement the laws. So the government has to come to the ground level and implement the laws. Now Gettel has given a good definition here. This thing, if you could remember this in the same words and you can write them down in the same words, it will be highly beneficial. Now, without the government, if there is no government, the population would be an incoherent, unorganized and anarchic mass. Yani, what this person is saying, that if there is no government, in the absence of government, the people will become unorganized. They will not stay organized as one. There will be no unity. There will be anarchic activities. There will be anarchy because people will not listen to anyone because there is no common authority. And when there is no common authority, there are not going to be any collective action. Everyone will just stand for himself. Everyone will do whatever he pleases. So that highlights the importance of government. So the three things that you already knew somehow but were not actually sure of are these three things that are the basic elements of state. The area, you can look at India. It has a huge area, population, it has a huge population, and then we have a government. So these three things are needed. Now, these three things are also present in some other kind of entities too. Like for example, you can take the example of Delhi. Delhi also has an area, it also have a population, it also has a government. So why it is not a state, why it is only a union territory, why it is only a unit of state. And that takes us to the fourth element of the state, and that is sovereignty. Now, this is something that is new for you, but this is something you have always experienced. You only are the first time being formally introduced to it. You have been exercising it, you have been seeing this since ever. So, sovereignty basically is that in a state, the government or whoever taking the decision, in this case the government will be taking the decision, so there is no power above the power of the government. There is absence of any restrictions on government. So the government, whenever it takes a decision, it can implement its decision. It has a power to punish those who break the law. Laws are not just voluntary. You cannot choose to follow the law. You have to follow the law. It's a must, because if you do not follow the law, the government has the power, ultimate power, to punish you. And when the government is introducing a law, it is not something it has to take authorization from somewhere else. It is completely free in its internal matters and external matters. It can bring any such law. Now we will understand this definition and everything with examples. Okay, I will give you 3-4 examples and you will be completely clear in this. Now look at this. India before 1947. Before 1947 we had area, we had population. Even it was the British government, but we also had a government. But what we were lacking, we were lacking sovereignty, because our decisions were not being taken by us. The viceroy was the representative of the queen, and there was this power of the British parliament up and above the power of the Indian parliament. So there was no sovereignty. So India was not a state before 1947, it was only a colony of England. Now, USA before 1776, the same story here. The people of America were being ruled by the people or the parliament of Britain. Their decisions were being taken by the British parliament and not by the US Congress. So, they were also lacking this sovereignty, and for that, they were also not state. Now, a local simple example. Let's suppose that the Indian government decides to launch Aadhaar card. Let's just make Aadhaar card mandatory for everyone. Now there is absolutely no need to take any sort of authorization from United States of America or Australia or New Zealand or England, because Indian government is sovereign. There is no power above it. We want to make Aadhaar card voluntary for all of our citizens. We are completely free in this matter. There is no one who can dictate us to do it or not to do it. That makes India a sovereign state. Now, in the same example, let's take the example of Haryana. If the Indian government, the central government, has dictated this, has said that all right, we are taking a decision to make Aadhaar card mandatory. Haryana government do not have a choice. Haryana government cannot say no, we are not going to make Aadhaar card mandatory. We are not going to follow your rule. We are not going to follow your law. We are completely free. No, they are not, because if Haryana government or any other state government for that sort, if they say that, president rule will be imposed. What does that prove? That prove that the Haryana government or the Punjab government or the Delhi government, they are not completely free. There is a power up and above their own power as well. They have to exercise their power in accordance with the supreme power. And that is what, my friends, distinguishes state from the unit of state. India, that's why, is a state, because there is absence of any power up and above its own power. And Haryana or Punjab or Delhi or Jammu Kashmir or Andhra Pradesh or Uttar Pradesh or Rajasthan, they are only unit of state. In local language, people sometimes call them state, but that is actually wrong. They're unit of states, because there is a power up and above their power. Now Gattel, it will become more clearer now when you will read this. Gattel says, if sovereignty is not absolute, no state exists. Gattel is trying to tell us same thing again in more plainer and simpler words. He's saying that if sovereignty is not absolute, there has to be absolute sovereignty. There should be absolute sovereignty. There should be no restriction at all. It should be completely free. The government can take whatever decision it wants. There has to be no need to take any authorization, and if there is any sort of pressure, then there is no state. That is the importance of sovereignty. Willoughby says that the sovereignty is supreme will of the state. Well, that defines itself. Sovereignty means that whatever the state is willing to do, it's supreme in its will. It doesn't have to take any permission from anyone. It is completely free. Don't you see this? That the Indian government is free to take any decision in its country. In the same way, the United States government is free to take any decision in its own territory. We, even the Indian government, cannot go and interfere and call Mr. Trump that no, you cannot do this because we don't like it. We are not going to authorize it. No, we do not have any authorization. In the same way, Mr. Trump cannot say the same thing because he has no authorization in the matters of India. Understand that? So these four things makes it clear, completely make them clear. Now the definition will become highly easy for you to understand. Now, Oppenheim is a political thinker. There are multiple political thinkers and there are multiple definitions. You can learn any one that you want, but this one is personally I like this one because it's simple and easy, and whatever the four things that you have learned so far, they are only summarized in this definition. Now, Oppenheim says the state exists. Where is the state? When a number of people. What does he mean by the number of people? The population are settled. He is using the word settled. So they are in one place in a country. See, a fixed territory. They are settled. They're not scattered. They're not moving here and there. They're settled under its own sovereign government. It has a government, and that government has a power to express its free will without any foreign restrictions. See, so you can learn this, remember this, try to write this twice or thrice and you will actually understand. We have the definition is completely simple. Whatever we have learned so far is only summarized in this. Now there is one small topic remaining and then we will end the class. This small topic is about the external sovereignty. Now we have learned this, that okay, the state is free in its internal matters, but what about the external matters? What about FTAF or WTO or UNO or Commonwealth? These organizations, these international organizations have their own international law and the states do follow their law. So if these organizations can sanction these states, can impose sanctions, various kind of, like you might have heard the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, has imposed some sanctions on Pakistan because it was not working very much on the terror front. It has grey listed it. So, and there are fears that it may get blacklisted too. So now the question arises that why, if there is this kind of restriction on the state to work, then how we can say that it has sovereignty? And the answer lies in the question itself. The answer is, to be the member of these organizations is a choice. It's a completely voluntary membership. A state may decide to be a member and it can quit the membership at any time it wants. Now I'll take the example of Commonwealth. Commonwealth is the grouping of the former colonies of England. We're also a member of the Commonwealth because we were also we were one of the colonies of England. So let's suppose in the Commonwealth they have this sort of preferential treatment to each other. Like if we are going to trade something, we are going to give the first preference to the Commonwealth members. Every Commonwealth member will have some strategic help to each other. We will have some kind of technology enhancement working together, or we can have some sort of tax exemption while trading with each other. So if a state feels that okay, this is beneficial, let's join it, and if the state feels no, it is not working anymore, let's just quit it. So the state is completely free, and this is what called external sovereignty. The state is completely free whether to join a group or not to join a group, or quit a group, or rejoin a group, or to wage war on a country, or to make peace with a country, trade with a country, or not to trade with a country. A state is completely free in its external affairs too, and that is called external sovereignty. And for example, Maldives was first a member of Commonwealth, then it decided okay, it's no longer working, let's drop it, and it quit. It relinquished its membership, and now it is trying again to get inside, and he's trying to become member again. So it's completely the will of the state. So I hope you might have understand a lot of this. It was basically simple. We only learned about the basic elements that you already knew. You only had to feel them in a formal manner. What is the state and why the concept of sovereignty is so important, the four elements of the states and the external sovereignty. So I hope you might have understood it, might have enjoyed it. So with that, we will end the class now. Let's see you in the next class. Thank you.